السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك وعلمنا من لدنك علما ينفعنا في الدين والدنيا يا كريم. أما بعد، الحمد لله, we continue بإذن الله تعالى our class on tasawwuf, and we are closer to the end of this presentation. And we are discussing what is known in Arabic as مسائل يعترض فيها على التصوف. So matters that are condemned and that people generally raise when talking negatively about tasawwuf. And we spoke in our last class about tawassul, so asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through someone. Today, one of the concepts that is very famous and we see a lot and we hear a lot about, and there's a lot of, let's say, confusion around, is tabarruk. Tabarruk in Arabic comes from the word barakah, so seeking barakah from things, okay? Seeking barakah of things. Now, this is something that we find, in any large Muslim community or country. We find this very, practiced a lot. And of course, in Tasawwuf, we find that a lot people seeking barakah. So, barakah could mean seeking the barakah, seeking the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in physical things, like drinking Zamzam water. There's barakah in that. So one of the things that you intend through drinking Zamzam is to get the barakah of that water. Or even normal rainwater. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about water, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً مُبَارَكًا. Or it could be non-physical things, like seeking the barakah of the dua of someone. You go visit someone righteous and you intend that they make dua for you because they are someone righteous who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted that. This is all different types of barakah. Even, barakah can even, be we can even seek it through the food of a righteous person, halal, good food. So there's many different ways of seeking barakah. Generally, seeking barakah was mentioned in many ahadith throughout the seerah and the history and the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it was mentioned clearly in many ahadith in Sahih Bukhari. One of the examples of seeking barakah that is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, and this is seeking barakah from other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some people, they have an issue with it being from other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Sahih al-Bukhari, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he had a group of guests come and visit him, and they prepared some food, and the guests left before eating, and he got very upset with his family. At the end of the story, he sat down to eat with his family, okay, and they felt that the food was increasing. The food was increasing as they were eating. So the end of the hadith is innaha barakah. Indeed, this is barakah. It is barakah. There is blessings in the food. And Abu Bakr then got his family to share the food with the people around. The word barakah is also mentioned in the Quran. Like I said, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً بَارَكًا. Allah says that the water sent down from the sky is full of barakah. Okay, he talks about different places of the earth having barakah. So, الأرض التي باركنا فيها, the land that we put barakah in. So barakah is mentioned in many different ahadith, narrations, whether it's from the Prophet ﷺ, whether it's from the tabi'een, whether it's from the Sahaba, whether it's from the pious scholars of Islam. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, many narrations used to seek barakah of other scholars and pious people around him. It's something very well known. So when it comes to seeking barakah, there's a lot of proof for this. And of course, to the other extent, are people who believe that seeking barakah is a form of shirk, of associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a very dangerous claim, because if that was shirk, it would be accusing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from committing shirk or from allowing shirk to happen. Because we know the very famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, when he made wudu, the Sahaba would fight over the drops of water that fall out of his hands and they would wipe it on their faces. Okay? And if they didn't, the hadith says if they didn't get from the water of the Prophet ﷺ, they would wipe the hands of the people who had touched the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. This is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Okay? And then they would seek barakah like that. In Sahih Bukhari, it's a true hadith. Another hadith in Sahih Bukhari, Anas radiallahu anhu said that he kept his mother used to have a bed where the Prophet would sleep on. And when he would get up, he would sweat. So she would rinse his sweat and put it into bottles. The Prophet used to sweat a lot. He didn't smell, but he used to sweat a lot. So she would rinse the sweat and put it into bottles. Anas radiallahu anhu kept a bottle of sweat his whole life, and he asked for it to be buried with him. Also, the hadith of Umrah, where the Prophet went to do Umrah, and he shaved his head. The Sahaba, they would fight over the hair of the Prophet to the extent that the Prophet saw the fighting it was not going to end, so he told one of the Sahaba to distribute the hairs upon them. Also, one of the famous narrations in Sirah is even one of the Sahaba, he had blood of Prophet with him, he just drank it. We're not supposed to drink blood, in Islam. But he just did it. So, the Sahaba used to seek barakah physically from the Prophet and it's very well known between the Sahaba. Ibn Umar would also stop and sit on every place Prophet had sat on when he was going to Hajj. The Prophet he had stopped on a few places on his journey to Hajj and to Mecca. Ibn Umar would always sit exactly on that same place to seek barakah. So barakah is not specific to the Prophet as mentioned by the scholars of all the madahib. Something agreed upon. And we know in the famous hadith in Abu Dawood that the Muslim is more sacred to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the Kaaba itself. Than the Kaaba itself. A Muslim is more sacred than the Kaaba itself. And the Kaaba is definitely a place of barakah. A place of barakah. In the Quran, in the Sunnah. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala in his book as Al-Ilal. He's a book in hadith. Okay. He was asked about wiping the mimbar of the Prophet. Wiping it. He said it's permissible. There's nothing wrong with it. And he did tabarruk many times with the clothes of Imam Shafi'i, many other things in his life, rahimahullah. So that is regarding seeking barakah. In fiqh, in the madahib, it's clear, nothing wrong with it. No schools have mentioned that it's not allowed. Allah Ta'ala a'lam. Any questions regarding barakah? Or we go on to the next topic, inshallah.
Shaykh Sahib, just a quick observation, because my background is from Pakistan.
Yes.
So in Pakistan, usually, they distribute, some sweets, a few things, and they call it tabarruk,
Yes.
It's not an Arabic country. So I think that falls under the same type of explanation that you gave, right?
So how is that? What's the occasion that it's distributed by?
So for example, they make some dua and then they distribute some sweets. Then they, they have got, lots of shrines, and then they cook stuff, and then the people come and eat, and then they call it tabarruk. So I'm not sure whether that links with this concept or it's something different.
I think what you're referring to might be similar to in Iraq and other countries. When they feed food on behalf of someone, they call it like thawab or something on behalf of someone. Maybe that's what you mean. That that is really like being generous and sadaqah. So I guess there's barakah in that. Unless, like you said, the food was cooked for a special occasion or with some specific money or something like really good in Islam, so they think seek barakah from that. But anyway, the food of a Muslim should generally have barakah in it. Should generally have barakah in it, and should generally be medicine. The food of a Muslim, if it's from a halal source and everything. So I'm not familiar exactly with what you mentioned. Different cultures are different, but generally the food of a Muslim is something that we can intend to take the barakah from. There's nothing wrong with that. With Islamic inshallah.
Yep, that's fine. Yep, thank you.
Okay. inshallah ta'ala, after tabarruk, which is a very simple masala, we'll go on to the next topic, which is events. Certain events that people practice throughout the year. Mawlid, Isra and Mi'raj, different days, different practices. What is the fiqhi ruling around these things? Because we see many mutasawwifa practice these things or do them and give them a lot of significance. So before we go into this topic, it's important to understand that making a judgment, okay, a ruling, giving a ruling on participating, okay, or on practicing something specific, an event, an occasion, okay, this is a fatwa. So giving this ruling is a fatwa. It's serious. And this can only be delegated to the masters of fiqh, the imams of fiqh in all the four madahib, so that they can derive the correct ruling. When we have something that we don't know the ruling of, we let the masters of fiqh use the qawa'id, use the tools and the methods that the four imams used to use, and get the ruling according to what they would have said and how they would have understood the Quran and Sunnah. So that's the first thing. So we don't just jump into this topic and say, you know what, I don't have any clear proof that Prophet ﷺ practiced this, so it's going to be haram, it's going to be a bid'ah. That is not, that's not an Islamic way to approach any ruling in Islam. And if we did that, most of what we do in our life would be haram. Just not doing it specifically was a proof that everything would be haram. So the scholars from all the four madahib, we're not talking about one or two imams. Yeah, we're talking about the whole entire Shafi'i school. Like you have like thousands and thousands in every single generation in Egypt, in Yemen, in Dagestan, in all different countries in the world, of scholars, of leading scholars in all fields of Islam. Also the Hanbali scholars, okay? Also the Maliki scholars. Maliki scholars are very famous in this, and they're very strict on the Sunnah, but they still allowed this. And also Hanafi scholars, we find that they have all mentioned in the books of fiqh, in the four madhab, we find that they have all allowed practicing and celebrating occasions like this, as long as there's nothing haram that occurs inside them. So if there was an event that had something haram occur inside, it would not be halal. Not because the event itself is haram, but because of what happens. So, for example, if there's, there is mixing in a way that's haram, like, not just general mixing, but people are not covering properly. There's mixing. People are very close to each other. The type of gathering would cause fitna. These types of mixing, that would be forbidden in all the madhab. But if the event is done according to the Sharia, then all four madhab allow these kind of events. Now, that's the first point that we're going to talk about. The second thing is that the Mawlid, it's important that we look into the reality of things when you want to give them a ruling. Yeah, so they say in Arabic, al-hukmu ala shay far'un an tasawwurihi. So if you want to make a judgment on something, you have to understand the reality of that thing before you make a judgment. Al-hukmu ala shay far'un an tasawwurihi. Making a judgment on something depends on true understanding of that thing. Okay, so let's look into the reality of a Mawlid. Generally, a Mawlid is a gathering that starts with reciting the Quran. Let's forget about the name, because the names don't really matter. Okay, we can call it whatever we want. It's a gathering that starts with Quran recitation, some nasheeds, and then they usually read a few chapters about the life of the Prophet ﷺ from a book. After that, one of the scholars would stand up and give advice, and they would feed people at the end of the day. That's generally what a Mawlid looks like. And every one of these acts have proof from the Quran and Sunnah. There's proof that we can read the Quran. It's fine. There's proof that we can do nasheed from the Sunnah. There's proof that we should study the Seerah, and it's Sunnah to study the Seerah. There's proof that we should advise people and give reminders. And there's proof that we should feed people. So putting them all together, there's nothing wrong with it. If that's a means to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing wrong with it. The third topic is that I want to talk about is that some people have an issue with specification of certain dates. Okay, so saying that, let's get together in this month and celebrate the birth process. Does that make it haram? Let's just mention quickly that specification of numbers of dhikr, like saying you do 100 times dhikr, 1,000 times dhikr, specificating a certain time, a certain hour, a certain even a certain way of doing things. These are all practical means to achieve an outcome, but they're not meant just for the sake of just specificating that that time. So if you were to look into the Islamic world, a lot of people, they celebrate the Mawlid throughout the year. And most people, they celebrate it throughout the whole entire Rabi' al-Awwal every single day. But like, they don't give significance to the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. And even if they did, it's because that day is a reminder of Prophet. But there's no meaning and there's no need to just specificate one day. That's not like something you would find. People think that it's just that day, that's when they celebrate the Mawlid. Generally, the Mawlid is just an event of seerah, an event of seerah that renews and refreshes people's understanding of the life of the Prophet and the love of the Prophet. That's it. That's it. Whether you call it Mawlid or not. So there's nothing wrong with specificating, with choosing a certain day, a certain time, a certain practice, a certain way, as long as it doesn't go, that day doesn't go against the Sharia. There's nothing the Sharia says not to do so. Another topic after this is that Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, and As-Suyuti and other great scholars, they said that not only the proof that I mentioned, that it's generally something permissible in Islam that has nothing saying it's haram, but they said that there's actually a dalil in the Sunnah about reviving specific days that give you good memories. Okay, so Suyuti wrote many books on this topic, and according to him, so not like if you don't want to take this proof, what I just said before is enough. It's significant, but some scholars even went beyond that. So Suyuti mentioned that there's 7 proofs in the Sunnah, 7 hadith that talk about using a specific event in history as a reminder to practice and to celebrate. One of the hadith is the hadith about fasting the day of Ashura. Okay, how Prophet ﷺ, when he heard that Musa alayhi salam was saved in that day, he said we should fast that day, and he made it a practice. Also, when he was asked about fasting Monday, he said it's the day that I was born, and that's why I fast Monday. So generally, there's a lot of proof that can show that choosing specific days is actually, this is not a dalil for Mawlid. Yeah, it's just a general concept. It's a general concept that tells us that reviving and renewing and remembering days is practice that is Islamic. That's what I'm saying. Another important factor to mention is that we need to correct our understanding when it comes into the word bid'ah. The word bid'ah. Okay. Subhanallah, there was a person, okay, an author in this day and age, who wrote a book about bid'ah, all the bid'ahs in the world, bid'ah, okay, and he gathered around 200 bid'ahs that he says that people practice, okay. When some of the scholars look into this book, 5 of the bid'ahs he mentioned were mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet, in the Hadith. So it's very dangerous to just say bid'ah without understanding what is authentic, what isn't. Another important thing to mention is that the word bid'ah in Arabic means something that is new, something that basically something that wasn't there before. And if something is new, does it automatically mean that thing is haram in Islam? Is that the case? That's not the understanding of the scholars of Islam since the Prophet ﷺ. So Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, in his famous book, Shafi'i himself, this is not one of his followers, this is Imam Shafi'i himself, in his book Al-Umm, the famous book that was written in fiqh by Imam Shafi'i himself. He says, Al-bid'atu khamsatu aqsam. There's 5 different categories of bid'ah. Imam Shafi'i is saying this, not me. And subhanAllah, some modern, I'm not going to say scholars, but some modern speakers who claim to be scholars have tried to refute Imam Shafi'i himself when he said this. So when they saw that, they said, no, Imam Shafi'i is wrong here, which is very dangerous. And that shows you the amount of the lack of adab that some people have. So Imam Shafi'i in his book Al says, Al-bid'atu khamsat, and there's 5 types of bid'ah. There's a bid'ah that is compulsory, that we must do. It's compulsory in Islam. And that example of that is something that would be the means of us, or something that doing something else that's compulsory would rely on. For example, if someone can't go to Hajj today without an airplane is bid'ah. Prophet never used to ride an airplane, yeah, but that's a means to go to Hajj, that would be compulsory bid'ah. Also, he said there's bid'ah that are sunnah, that are mustahab. Okay, and generally in history, the scholars would say an example of bid'ah that's sunnah, that's mustahab, that is recommended, are things like gatherings, things like Quran, things like like gatherings that people decide suit their time and age. That's exactly what we're talking about here in the Mawlid, yeah, same thing. And there's bid'ah that is jaiz, that's not haram, not compulsory, not haram. There's no reward, there's no sin in doing it or leaving it. An example of that is most of the modern things that we do in this day and age. For example, eating with a fork and a spoon. That's bid'ah. In the books of fiqh, they say it's bid'ah, but it's a permissible bid'ah. Permissible bid'ah. Okay. And then there's bid'ah that is disliked, and there's bid'ah that is haram. Bid'ah that is haram would be like inventing a new salah, coming up with a new practice in Islam. That would be haram. So it's important that we renew and we correct our understanding when it comes to these concepts, and we always rely on the words of the fuqaha rahimahumullah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, that is all I have prepared. So we've gone through 103 slides, alhamdulillah, in this presentation. This is like maybe a beginner's manual of tasawwuf, inshallah ta'ala, before we go into a more detailed book, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. I think the points mentioned are very important for every Muslim to reflect upon. Inshallah ta'ala, all the classes will be uploaded soon to the drive, where we can access and revise inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah, any questions?
Shaykh sir, I would like to ask another question.
No.
So please forgive me my ignorance if you ask something.
No, we want questions. Mashallah, you're
yeah. So I'm not sure about the caliber of the other students, in the class. So yeah, I consider myself the least one. So
no, class is very
unless I ask, how do we know? So I've come across this, the concept of I don't know whether you heard or not, Gyarvi. It's on the 11th of every month, lunar month, I think. In our country, they call it Gyarvi. Gyarvi means the 11th of every month. They in Pakistan, what they do is some people, even in our family, they used to do it, and then they usually make dua and cook something, and they relate it to some event that happened in the life of Hazrat Shaykh Qadir Abdul Jilani rahmatullah alayhi. So I just need to have you come across this before this?
Is it every month or is it Rabi' al-Thani?
I'm not sure. They call it Gyarvi. I'm not sure whether they do it every month or they do it on and off, but they do it. And then there is another thing that that is called Milad. Milad. I think Mavlid that you just talking about, is this linked with Milad? So
Milad, Mawlid is the same root in Arabic, of course. Like I said, the way people practice, the form people practice in differs. So it's the same thing in the same word, but generally you might find different practice in different countries. Now, a lot of people do things that are wrong, that are haram in the Mawlid.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of people. So I'm not saying that all practice of Mawlid in the world are correct. That's not what I'm saying. Okay.
Understood that.
Many people do things that are haram. For example, in some countries, okay, you find people with no hijab on, mixing, dancing together. Yeah, that's haram. Yeah. Okay. Some countries, people even taking drugs and and that's haram. Yeah, that is totally haram against Sharia. There's no question about that. Okay. The only type of mawlid or milad or whatever it is that's permissible is something that doesn't go against the Sharia. It doesn't go against. So there's, it's just Quran spirit of nasheed, seerah, food. There's nothing haram going on at all. Yeah, that's the only type. So sometimes the practice in some countries can be problematic in a lot of times. And there's no doubt about that. And we're not talking about every single, so I'm not talking on behalf of all the people who practice. I'm just saying that generally in history, if someone wants to practice this event, but do it according to Sharia, then it's permissible. Then it's permissible in that case only. Now, again, celebrating the life of Shaykh Abdur-Rahman Jilani, he's born in Rabi' al-Thani, so the next month after Rabi' al-Awwal, yeah, which is the month we're in now. Shaykh Abdur-Rahman Jilani, same thing. Celebrating his life, it would have the same conditions, yeah. If someone, so I haven't, the word you said, I haven't come across much time because I didn't go to the subcontinent countries basically, but generally, if someone is going to practice, and I know in Arab countries some people do also celebrate his life, his life and his birth. If someone is going to celebrate his life by studying his lessons, his teachings, his practices, feeding food to people, then alhamdulillah, it's permissible. If someone is going to do it by doing something that's haram, then it's not permissible. So all depends on us not going against the Sharia. Like we said in the beginning of these classes, our tasawwuf has to be bound by the Sharia. It doesn't go out of the Sharia, by the Quran and Sunnah. Yeah. So there's two things that usually occur. Some people go outside Sharia, they leave the Quran and Sunnah, and they claim that's tasawwuf. That's wrong. Okay. Another group of people, they attack tasawwuf, even though they attack people who are only going by the Quran and Sunnah, but they still attack them, and they claim that what they're doing is against the Quran and Sunnah. So there's two extremes. Yeah, there's two extremes. So we have to learn and study, understand the limits and the boundaries, so that we don't go out of the wasat, the adl, the middle approach.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
I think sometime, when I'll get a chance to sit with you, then I'll have some lengthy discussions with you. Jazakumullah khair.
Shaykh, I've got a question that I'm curious about. I think it's connected, but maybe slightly different. So, I understand this, like the spiritual reality of sending salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we get a reply back, and that's got a spiritual reality. Where I'm curious, though, is, like even in the word that we've got, how we gift the Fatiha to the Ruh al-Rasul.
Yes.
I would have, what's the reality of that? Because I would have kind of, at least from a logical perspective, would have gone, anytime we read anything or say the Fatiha or any form of ibadah or otherwise, it's attributed to the Prophet anyway, because of the virtue that everything we know is taught through him.
Yes. Beautiful.
So how does that make sense? Like, I'm just trying to...
I get it, yeah. So first of all, yes, every good action that a Muslim does, Prophet ﷺ gets the same reward. Why? Because, as the Rasulullah said, من سن في الإسلام سنة حسنة فله أجرها وأجر من عمل بها إلى يوم القيامة. Whoever creates a good, a good practice in Islam gets the reward of that practice, and everyone who does it until the end of it. Now, Imam Ibn Jazari rahimahullah ta'ala says in a famous poem of his, was known as ذات الشفاء في سيرة النبي والخلفاء, says وكذا كل حسنة تفعل فإن أجرها له يكمل لأنه الذي أتى بالدين صلى عليه الله كل حين. Every single good deed that is done, the rewards are all going to the Prophet ﷺ, and you also get your full reward because he's the one who came with reason. So that's definitely, there's no doubt in that. On top of that now, okay, can we gift Fatiha, Quran, something to others, whether they're alive or not alive, whether they're alive or not, whether they're with us or not? Can we gift Quran, and does that have significance? Does that really have an effect? Okay, there's two parts to this. Number one, the Shar'i part, the fiqh part. Okay, according to fiqh, what's the ruling? Of course, majority of fuqaha would recommend these kind of things, and they also believe that it does reach, and I think we talked about that. I'm not sure if we talked about one of the classes. Number two, the practical, the actual physical reality of this. So this is known through many means. One of the main ways that this is known through is through practice. So, many pious people, many people who have a connection and have a direct connection, they inform us that these things like gifting Quran has a severe effect. One of the strongest effects, more than anything else, is to send Fatiha to the souls of pious and others. The moment you send them Fatiha, it is believed that you create a connection, you strengthen your connection in that moment. So you're renewing your connection every morning and every afternoon with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, once you strengthen your connection, okay, then you are more protected, you have more anwar and stuff like that. So that's practical, okay. There are some dalil in the Quran and Sunnah that do indicate that good deeds are gifted on behalf of others. Many proofs in the Quran and Sunnah clear that good deeds can be gifted. And this is another example of gifting good deeds. So we could just say, just to summarize the answer, the significance and the effect of your daily actions, the good Prophet ﷺ, is different than the significance of gifting Fatiha. They're two different matters that both have a strong effect, and they both reach the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a different way. Basically. Is that clear?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it was more. Yeah, I think it clarifies it, because I was just curious, because I could understand gifting it to others and the pious, maybe family members who've passed on, etc., etc. It was just, I thought that by default, anything that we do of barakah would go back to the Prophet anyway. So
twice. Double.
What's it? Yeah. So is it just the?
So look, there's our scholars mentioned that, subhanallah, the rank of the Prophet ﷺ is something very unique. They mentioned that, every time you send salah upon the Prophet ﷺ, how many people send salah every day? Millions and thousands around the world. Okay, every time you send salah, the first thing is that salah is accepted, inshallah. The second thing is that sending salah literally means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to raise him a rank higher than he used to be. Okay, so basically, like the scholars say, there's literally it's not infinite, amount, but there's so many ranks and levels that he can reach, sallallahu that we can't even imagine. And this is something that, like, not even just tasawwuf explained, but this is something that you can even believe and convince yourself with, even if you didn't believe in tasawwuf. Because if, like I said, to believe that every good deed someone does the Day of Judgment reaches Prophet, like, how high would he be? The salawat, how high would it be? So subhanallah, yes, the ranks seem like they never end. And the second thing is that gifting is different, because when you gift something to someone, it's like you are strengthening your connection. You're focusing on what you're doing, not how high it's going to be, is that going to help him or not, but you're focusing on, it's like a gift, like a present. So that, like I said, strengthens your connection in its own unique way as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. Jazakallah khair.
Any other questions? Okay. So alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to finish these classes. Inshallah, I will start something else very soon. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى ال سيدنا محمد كما صليت وسلمت وباركت على سيدنا ابراهيم وعلى ال سيدنا ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. ربنا تقبل منا وتب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم. اغفر لنا اجمعين. اللهم انصر الاخوان والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الاسلام واعز المسلمين يا رب العالمين. تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم وتب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم. واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.